We talk here about metals being a great way to store wealth, but we don't really talk about literally storing those things. Until now. Okay, so we're going to jump back into the topic of storing precious metals and other things. And yeah, I've covered this before, but for obvious reasons, I just didn't get very specific. The first rule of operation security is pretty simple. You just keep your mouth shut. You don't talk about what you have, you don't talk about where you keep it, and you don't talk about how you have it secured. And why would you do that? I mean, maybe you have a YouTube channel, or maybe you're just trying to impress the hostess at the all-day buffet. I don't know. But if you're talking about me, and we are, I guess, it's the first one. And I've already broken one of those rules by showing gold on the channel. So anything beyond that is probably going to be intentionally vague, maybe even intentionally false. If I say something like keeping your gold in a cereal box might be a good idea, well, that's an honest opinion about hiding things in plain sight, but it's probably not what I do. I'm just not big on cereal. The problem here is that a video just isn't very useful if it's intentionally vague or misleading, so I'm going to get more specific in this one, I promise. And as you can see, I have an actual safe sitting here. And then I have a few more ideas to go along with it, and this should give you at least enough information to think about if you're shopping, if you're planning, or maybe if you're auditing your own storage setup. So we're going to start with safes. So this safe here is out of rotation, I guess you'd say. It's a safe that I was using at a property that I sold a few months ago, and if I was recommending a safe to buy, well, this is one of the brands and even one of the lines, I guess, that I would recommend. Now, the size might not be right for you, but I'm going to explain a few reasons that I do like this particular safe and then give you a few more ideas of where you might go from there. Now, Holland is not sponsoring this video, by the way, and that's a damn shame, but it's important to say that I bought this safe with my own hard-earned money. Nobody sent this to me to review or anything like that. And this was about $1,000 thereabout, at least that's what they cost today. It's an FB 450 fire and burglary safe, and I like it for a few reasons. Now, I don't want to bore anyone with the details of this particular safe, but the specs that I'm going to share here are pretty important if you're shopping. And I should also say that, I don't know all the safes out there. I do have experience with a few manufacturers, AMSEC, that's American Security, Gardall, and Holland. Those are the ones that I know and like best. There are a lot of other options out there, though. There are a lot of solid safe manufacturers. Again, though, these are the ones that I know. They're pretty popular as well. So what you'll find with these three brands is that they're not cheap. Holland is probably the most reasonable of the three. Not probably, they are. And each of them have lines within the brand like home safes, business safes, cash safes, burglary safes. And then you get up to the TL rated safes. And those were in order of how serious they are. Now, I would never use something from a company's home safe line. That's at the bottom end. Those safes are probably good at keeping things out of the hands of your kids, but you're virtually guaranteeing its loss in a burglary. So for perspective, this safe here is 20 by 20 by 18 inches or so, 18 inches high. It weighs 250 pounds with nothing in it, and a comparably sized home safe from the same company will weigh less than half of that. So you go from something that would require a heavy-duty hand truck and a lot of swearing to something that can be carried off like a football. Now you'll hear that TL rated safes are the only way to go. Those are the big ones, those are the man safes, but this one here is actually a level below that, and I'm okay with it. I would say that it will still get the job done in most cases, and this, for me, is probably the entry point into that realm, into that serious safe realm. It can be anchored to the floor, and it should be. And just like I mentioned, it is an absolute bitch to move. I'll link this up in the description since it's our case study today. And also because I like it enough to say that I like it. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this new keypad. Like a dummy, I broke the original one in the move. But you get what you pay for, and $1,000 gets you less than you might imagine. For whatever reason, I think this is the new keypad you'll get if you buy this today. Not a big deal, but the Holland Oyster line, which is what this safe is in, I think is a great deal for the price. They're less than Gardall, they're less than AMSEC, and depending on where you are in each of the brand's lineups, they're pretty comparable. So, a few more specific comments on these safes. There are specific features that I would say you should look for, but really, if you stick to a company like Holland or Gardall or AMSEC, you can probably just target their higher lines and know that you're getting a solid safe. Now, when you figure out which safe you want, you typically have the option of an electronic keypad or a combination lock. I tend to like combination locks for safes that I don't have to get into very often because they're a little bit of a pain. And then keypads for the ones that I do, or for the ones that family members do, because I don't want to field the complaints. Now, keypads, they're easier to use, but they're also typically plastic. And if you're like me, they are relatively easy to break. On top of that, they require 9-volt batteries to work, as most electronics do. Now, another thing that I'll say is that this particular size safe is about the heaviest option that you'll likely be able to install on your own, unless you're just a giant tough guy, because at 250 pounds, you can move it with the heavy-duty dolly more or less on your own. Ideally, you have a helper, but this is a serious pain, especially if stairs are involved. On the upside, of course, though, that means that it's a serious pain for anyone trying to make off with your stuff. And like I said, since you can easily bolt this down, you'd have to get it pried loose and then moved out of its resting place. So that would not only require a big tough guy, the bad guy also has to have the right equipment and plenty of time. So I mentioned earlier that a comparably sized safe from Holland's Home Safe line is a lot lighter. It's probably closer to 100 pounds, maybe even a little less than that. One from the Office Safe line, that's about 150. Now, either of those could easily be slid across the floor, and I don't think that that does you a whole lot of good. Now, this safe here, though, this one from the Fire and Burglary line, it's not moving without wheels or straps or both. There's just no way to get a hold of it unless your name is Magnus. Now, if you want to stick to something this size but get a little bit more serious, Holland's comparably sized TL rated safes, they weigh about 450 pounds and up. Same with Gardall, same with the AMSEC. Those aren't going anywhere. They would need to be broken into on site. TL is tool resistance, by the way. A TL15 safe can hold off a pro with the right equipment for 15 minutes. TL30 for 30. And that might not sound like much, but this is not Ocean's 11. The typical case will not involve unmolested thieves working with carbide drills and lock-picking tools in your basement. So I think the initial takeaway here is that this is probably the entry point that I would consider to store metals. It clears a 2-hour fire test if you want to put other things in there, and it can be dropped like 30 feet. I had to look that part up. This one has 1.5 inch diameter bolts, has a lock groove, so taking a cutting torch to the hinges, it's not going to do you any good. And then the walls of this safe are 3 inches thick. So it's a good option for your garage, for your utility room, maybe even your master bedroom or your office. But that's only if you aren't keeping significant valuables in it, because the first place and the second place that a burglar is going to look is the master bedroom and the office. And if you have a safe in there and it can be moved, well, it is gone. On this one, it's just heavy enough and it's just serious enough that a single burglar or an amateur crew would have a hell of a time getting away with it. Now, you can go up from here in size and mass. You can also go up in tool resistance ratings. You'll get all that information from the websites, Amazon, whatever. I'm just going to give you some quick information. In the same line for Holland, a 20 by 20 by 27 inch safe, so a little bit taller, weighs 360 pounds. You're getting even harder to move, a little bit more serious. The next size up, 34 inches high, 440 pounds. And then at 42 inch high, that's almost a gun safe, 750 pounds. Now, at that size and at that weight, it's going to be a case of breaking into them. It's not going to be a case of making off with them. But if you're planning to keep significant assets in a safe like this and you want to take it further, it's worth looking into a TL15 or TL30 rated safe. Now again, sticking with the same company but jumping to their TL15 line, you need to go a little bit bigger to get the same internal dimensions. On a 25-inch high TL15 safe, that weighs 590 pounds. That's about the same as what you're looking at here in terms of internal dimensions. It has a 4-inch thick wall rather than 3, so sledgehammers, crowbars, power saws, they're not getting in. You need that carbide drill or something that I don't know, maybe I don't know about yet. Give a pro enough time and any safe can be cracked, but a TL rated safe that's bolted down, it's not getting tipped over and cracked open by a couple of amateurs with pry bars. Holland's next size up in that TL15 line, 34 inches high, that weighs more than 1,000 pounds, so that's not getting tipped over at all. Now, the last factor that I'm going to cover here about safes, it's an important one. It is the cost. I mentioned that this safe right here is about $1,000, and a similarly sized TL15 safe from Holland is $2,200. From Gardol or AMSEC, you're looking at more like $3,500. And if you go a little bit larger, jump to a TL30, you will see safes hit $4,500 and more. So if you're looking for a heavy-duty safe that a random burglar couldn't run off with, that is not ridiculously expensive, possibly too heavy for you to install on your own, this one might be a good choice. Holland FB450, it's in their Oyster series. Amazon even sells them. Have I lost it yet? I hope not, because now I'm going to talk about some common sense real stuff. First off, the scope of what you're storing is obviously very important here. Now, if I'm storing silver, I like this safe right here. A monster box of silver adds something like 35 pounds. So that would make it even harder to lug out. Now, spending $1,000 on a safe that can still technically be moved out sucks. But I would have it anchored down, ideally countersunk into concrete, but at least anchored into a floor joist or a backing plate. Somebody would really have to work to make off with it. A couple of kids, they're not getting it. Random burglar, not getting it. I have things to keep people out of my home in the first place, but that's a separate story. Now, if I'm stacking gold kilo bars, I might want that 1,200 pound TL30 safe that costs 4 or 5 times more. Nobody's making off with a safe like that. You'd be taking out a wall to get your forklift in, or you'd be sending in a professional Ocean's 11 crew. And I guess that could happen, but the point here is to plan around your own personal risk. Now I'm somewhere between a box of silver and a stack of gold kilo bars, so there's a little bit more to consider. I could get a safe somewhere between this one here and a Mammoth TL30. I could get maybe just a size jump or two up in the same line from Holland. I might jump to an RSC line from Gardol or American Security. I might even consider a TL15 safe. I have lots of options. But there's also the outsmart them route. There's no reason that I have to keep every ounce of gold that I own in the same place. I have this Pelican case sitting here. I like these for organizing coins, but I'm probably not filling them up with gold and then storing them in a single conspicuous safe. These fit 2 mint tubes, 2 airtight tubes, 2 airtight tubes, and a stack of 4 or 5 10-ounce silver bars, 4 or 5 slabs, whatever. So the quick math on 4 tubes, that's 80 ounces of gold at $1,800. That's $144,000 in current value. That's enough to get me to think this through a little bit more and spread everything out. And maybe it doesn't need to go in a safe at all. A mint tube like this holds 21-ounce coins. It can fit in a cereal box. It can fit in a hollowed out book, a single gang electrical box, or a paint can. It could be buried in the dirt. It could be hidden in the attic. And I would at least consider all of that before going wild on a big conspicuous safe purchase. I do have one of those big conspicuous safes. I have a hidden one too. I have a convenient safe like this one right here. I even have a fire safe that I suppose works as a decoy that would really piss somebody off, but I really just have it because I haven't gotten around to retiring it. I don't have a good place to throw it away. Now, you've seen these safes before. I'm not going to show it. It's a Century safe. I probably got it at Sam's Club or Costco. It's just silly. I can pick it up and I can probably run with it. That scene in Office Space where they're heel kicking the printer in the parking lot, that would probably bust this thing open. So back to the point, with all those options, there's still an argument to be made about simply hiding your gold, spreading it out at a minimum. And I know this isn't always popular around here, but even getting some off-site. Maybe you're not comfortable keeping gold in your home, and that's fine. There are vaulting services that work well. You really just need to weigh out the pros and cons for your specific case. We're always going to see those comments, people saying if you don't hold it, you don't own it, but sometimes it's just not worth it. Now, my hobbies include guns, sharp things, and martial arts, but if this channel was no longer anonymous, I'd vault most of my gold the next day. If somebody knows what you have and they know where you keep it, they are able to make trouble for you in a lot of different ways. Now, maybe you have a good safe or have a good hiding spot. Maybe I even have a good chance of taking out a bad guy in my own home, but that is the last thing that I want. The only fight you win is the one you aren't in, unless that's your job and you're getting paid. So hopefully the options that I mentioned for safes are helpful if you're trying to decide what to get, but if you only take one thing from this video, it's what I said in the first 30 seconds. The first rule of operation security is to keep quiet about what you have and where you keep it. Unless you lost it all in a tragic boating accident, like I did. I'm not sure that I'll ever get over that loss, but maybe talking about it will help. Okay, I think that does it. So what do you think? Hide your metals, drop it behind 4 inches of steel and concrete, maybe both? Maybe it's something else. This is all hypothetical, of course, so leave a comment. Let us know what you would do if your metals weren't at the bottom of a lake. And then while you're in the comments, be sure to hit the like button if you found any of this interesting. It was 15 minutes. There has to be something. Also, be sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you want to see more on the topic. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.